I know it's an important question to answer when my grandma, who does not watch sports at all, calls me after the draft and asks, who are the Browns going to start at quarterback? So let's talk about that very question. What is Cleveland going to do at quarterback? Let's just start by looking over the depth chart. First thing you have to know is Deshaun Watson out of the equation. He is going to spend the entire 2025 season on the physically unable to perform list. Okay, so that leaves 4 quarterbacks: Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, 3rd-round pick from Oregon, and Shedeur Sanders, 5th-round pick from Colorado. I have them in order as I believe they would be if there were to be a game tomorrow. I think Joe Flacco is going to be this Week 1 starter. I don't think it's even really much of a conversation or debate. Sure, you're going to hear a lot of talking heads over the next 3 or 4 months say it could be Shedeur because when the draft is over, news and rumors and things like that in the NFL world start to dry up, and this is going to be a fun topic that people have on ESPN and things like that. But no, when September gets here, Kevin Stefanski is not handing things over to Shedeur Sanders unless he has the greatest training camp we've seen from a rookie in the last decade. And I'm talking not just like first overall pick rookie, but like a day 3 rookie selection. No, if I had to put money down, I'd put it on Joe Flacco for Kevin Stefanski to turn to with a quarterback that he could trust the most to get this team off to a good start. He is not going to open up the season just to lean into what social media would want to see happen. So I think Flacco, and I say this with a lot of confidence, will be the Cleveland Browns Week 1 starter. Now, knowing the Browns and knowing Flacco, it's not likely that he is the Week 1 and Week 18 starter. That would just be too easy and simple for the Browns. They haven't had that since Baker 5 years ago now, and even Baker was the first to do it in a long time. So there is a very, very high chance that after Joe, we see some other quarterbacks enter the mix. Whether that's through an injury, he's 40 years old, right? You don't wish injury upon people, but a 40-year-old, when they take a hit, it's going to hurt a lot more than a 25-year-old, all right? Or it could be just through a flat-out benching. Remember, the last time we saw Flacco in a Browns uniform, he was running after a Texans DB because he threw 2 pick sixes. So it's not like he ended on a very high note with Cleveland, despite the highs he had building up to that playoff loss in Houston. So if I had to put money down, the next quarterback up, I think, is Kenny Pickett. I think the Browns making a move for Pickett somewhat early in the offseason process is a major action speak louder than words type of move. I don't view Pickett as highly as Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry do, but I'm not in charge. And I think the Browns look at Pickett as NFL vet with a lot of starting experience. Way more than Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders have, right? They're a pair of pups right now. And so early in the process, I think Pickett is there battling with the rookies for QB2. And I'd say right now he has the lead. In fact, I think right now the order back for the Browns quarterback room isn't really that complicated of a nut to crack. Who got the biggest investment? Joe Flacco. He got the most money in free agency, right? Who was made the second biggest investment? Kenny Pickett. They traded a 5th and a player for him. What was the next biggest investment? Dillon Gabriel. They used a 3rd-round draft pick on him. And last, Shedeur Sanders. I think the investments that were made in all 4 of those quarterbacks is the order in which they currently stand in. Now, that's the order going into everything. Obviously, things can change, right? The Seahawks signed Matt Flynn from Green Bay, and Russell Wilson came in there and won the starting gig, right? Dak Prescott, remember, he was a 4th-round pick, and Tony Romo was there. And then Prescott was awesome. Romo got injured, and they never turned back. So this stuff does happen every so often, but it's not very often. Those are 2 examples in the last, almost 15 years. I'm racking my head right now trying to think of another example of a day 3 quarterback who won the job in training camp. Maybe the next closest would be Brock Purdy, just because he looked so good in camp that when Jimmy G and Trey Lance went down, San Francisco didn't really flinch. they turned to Purdy, and they never had second thoughts about trading for a different quarterback. So once every 5 years, 6 years, this kind of thing happens here. But if I had to put money down to kind of summarize one last time, as you let me know who you think is going to start week 1, I think it's Flacco. Now, I think during training camp, we're going to see, look at this way. You got 4 quarterbacks, and you have your first-team offense, your second-team offense, and your third-team offense. So it's probably going to be Flacco with the ones almost ceremoniously, right? And then they'll rotate day after day. The example I'll draw on here is last year, the Denver Broncos, okay? They had rookie Bo Nix, first-round pick. Very different from a third and a fifth. They had Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson. Those 3 guys alternated every single day who went with the first-team offense. And some guys had good days, some guys had bad days. It was up and down. But that's what they did. And so my guess is one day it's going to be Kenny Pickett running with the ones. The next day it'll be Shedeur running with the 2s. The day after that it'll be Dillon Gabriel running with the 2s and Pickett back with the 1s. And if Shedeur or Gabriel look really good for 2 or 3 straight days with the second-team offense, maybe they get one crack with the 1s, and then they go back to Joe Flacco with the 1s. But I think we're going to see a big mix here as the Browns just want to get a good look at all 4 quarterbacks. They know what they have in Flacco. They have a good idea what they have in Pickett, but they don't know what they have in Pickett with the Cleveland Browns. They just know what they have on him from his time in Pittsburgh and a little bit of Philadelphia. But Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur, they don't know what they have in, but that does not mean they're just going to skip to the front of the line. You got 88 other players on the roster, and the coaching staff has to do right by them to field the best 22 starters, not to do what social media wants to do, which is we want to see the rookies. That time will come in the second half of preseason games. But up until then, no, Kevin Stefanski is going to try and put together the best starting lineup he can, and that's going to lead off with players with veteran experience. And as camp and preseason progress, if Dillon Gabriel and if Shedeur Sanders impress more and more and more by the week, then a change can be made. But that is not a very common thing, as we talked about earlier, for a round 3 or later quarterback to be that big of a head turner early on. How often do we see rookies taken in round 1 have some difficulty in training camp? And that's not something to panic over, but if those guys are having some tough goes of it, yeah, I don't have high expectations for what Gabriel or Sanders do. So if they have a bad week at training camp or a bad preseason game, I don't think you should panic. I think that should be expected. All right, so that's kind of, the big question and my answer to it. Who's going to start? Joe Flacco. Who's going to finish the year? Who knows? They're probably going to go for three or four different starters. But it's going to go with the veterans, and it's going to go in order. And I also will add that I don't think Shedeur is going to get this fast pass to the front. Like some people are, I'm just going to straw man. I'm just going to present this argument before someone else does. You're going to find a clip from Get Up or Adam Schefter that says the Browns should absolutely be starting Shedeur Sanders. There is no future with Joe Flacco. Kenny Pickett stinks, and Gabriel was a reach. Grade my Stephen A. impression. But you're going to have that clip come out where it says the Browns should start Shedeur Sanders. And I want you to remember when that clip comes out around Memorial Day weekend into June, into July, that there's just nothing else to talk about. So they're going to go with something that leads. And the Browns are going to laugh. They're not actually going to laugh because they won't even be listening to that to have the opportunity to laugh. They're going to go with the guys who give them the best chance to win early on. And as the season goes on, if they see dramatic growth from either Sanders or Gabriel, then they might make a change in October or November. And this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier, and I lost track because I always go off tangents here. My working theory is still that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry picked Dillon Gabriel because they like Dillon Gabriel as a quarterback. And Andrew Berry was overridden by Jimmy Haslam when Shedeur was available in round 5. That's my stick my neck out. Here's my hot take. I think that was a Jimmy Haslam pick in round 5. I think Jimmy Haslam was, willing to not meddle because he doesn't want to screw up a first or second round pick. So he held back. But at pick 144, he said, I don't really care. because whoever we were going to get here, whoever you were going to pick here, probably was not going to be very good anyway. So why not roll the dice on Shedeur Sanders and sell a whole bunch of jerseys? Because he's going to set an NFL record for most amount of jersey sales by a 5th-round draft pick. All right. Did we cover all of our bases, Reed? Yep. All right. Let's pick a card to wrap up today's show. I've got Fanatics links down below in the comment section for Shedeur Sanders, Mason Graham, and Quinshon Judkins if you want one. All right. Which card do you want to go with? King of Spades. Queen of Clubs. Queen of Clubs. See everyone later.